You'll hear that message. Welcome everybody today to our Impact Retail event. GoodCarts is an organization that is dedicated to supporting impact retail e-commerce organizations like yourself. My name is Bailey Johnson, and I am the event and marketing manager at an organization called Impact Hub, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I'm also doing consultancy work with GoodCarts, and just love working with this organization because they're not only dedicated to supporting e-commerce organizations through their free app, which you can learn about later if you would like to stay on for the demo, but also through amazing content on their social media and blog newsletters and free events like this. It's been a pretty tough news week for us in the US and around the world, of course. And so that is on top of our minds for a lot of us. So I feel inspired to be surrounded by our presenters today who are putting purpose first in their work and really trying to make a difference in the world. So excited to introduce you to Stephen Clift, our CEO, who will kick off our workshop.
Great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another event with GoodCarts, not only for the GoodCarts members, but for really anyone who's interested in purpose-driven, impact-oriented retail. Part of our quest as we've been building out our community and our networking is to find like minds and to find different networks that have leaders in them. I'm a big fan of online communities, and I stumbled upon an online community called Evolve CPG, and I hope to hear a little bit about that, at least the sharing of a link of that by our speaker, Gage Mitchell. And Gage is with Evolve CPG. He has a podcast, and he also, his main company is Modern Species. Gage, feel free to say whatever else you would like to say. But I wanted to sort of thank Gage because we had an event where unfortunately our speaker with a family emergency couldn't make it in, I believe, January. And Gage was there as a guest and ended up almost becoming our impromptu presenter, sharing lots of tips and resources on the topic of Facebook ads and kind of discussions that we were having. And I just thought, you know, we should have Gage back on its own topic, if you will. And so here we have brand storytelling with a purpose. And Gage is going to go for, 35 or so minutes, 40 minutes, somewhere in there. We have then following up, we have two of our GoodCarts members are going to talk about some of their storytelling. In the meantime, you can use the chat to put in questions along the way and introduce yourselves. We love people who share their LinkedIn link and their link to their Instagram and to their store. Feel free to network all you like in that space. It's there for you. And so I think the last thing I'll say is that GoodCarts, it's a cross-promotional network of shop for good brands, but we also connect lots of different brands based on purpose. In fact, we're getting ready to launch publicly our Black-owned business network in partnership with the 1 Million Black Businesses Initiative, which is powered by Operation Hope and Shopify. And so we really connect in different circles, and a lot of our focus so far has been on our sustainable and shop for good circle, kind of a hybrid or combined circle. I will talk about GoodCarts and offer to do a demo of that way at the end. So about an hour from now, if you want to hang out, and it could just be one of you, that's all we need. I'd be glad to kind of show you a little bit more about it. But now to the main event. Gage, take it away, share your screen, do whatever you need to do. Thanks, Gage.
All right, thank you. Okay, brand storytelling with purpose. There is a lot I wanted to pack into this because, you could do an entire couple-hour workshop on just brand or just storytelling or just purpose alone. So I hope that all of what I'll share here will connect in a really crisp, clear way with some actionable steps afterwards. But of course, with that said, I could go for hours more. So feel free to pop any questions in the chat, and I will share these slides afterwards with Stephen so he can share with everyone else, Stephen and Bailey. So don't feel like you have to frantically take all your notes or do all the workshop steps just now. You can also do it afterwards. With that said, as Stephen mentioned, Stephen and I connected through the community and podcast they launched last year called Evolve CPG. And the idea behind this community is that we can go further, faster together if all of us purpose-driven consumer packaged goods people can share our knowledge and our experience and our resources and everything else, we can avoid years and years of mistakes and lots of money lost, etc., going down the wrong path, and spend more of our time going the right path, and therefore scaling our collective impact. So there is a podcast. You can find it on all podcast platforms just by searching Evolve CPG, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, etc. But there's also a online community at community.evolvecpg if you want to join that. As Stephen mentioned, my day job, the thing that pays for other projects like Evolve CPG, is an agency I founded about 13 years ago called Modern Species. And our reason for existence is to help bring about a more healthy, regenerative, and just society. And as creatives, as designers, the best way we can do that is by helping better for the world brands scale their brand so they can, or grow their brand so they can scale their impact. So we work with mission-driven brands like Nutiva, Alter Eco, Mama Chia, Organic Valley, a bunch of other companies like that that make amazing products but also exist for a purpose. And we help them communicate that purpose throughout their, packaging websites, all that kind of stuff. So that's why it's relevant that I'm here sharing this. It's a subject that I've been geeking out on for quite some time. So, oops, I think I didn't update this outline, so we'll just skip past that. But essentially what we're gonna talk a little bit more about, like, break down kind of each element. So like there's brand, there's storytelling, and there's purpose. First, let's talk a little bit about storytelling. So some opportunities for telling your story. And one thing I like to say a lot, remind people of, because whenever we're designing packaging or designing a website or whatever it is, everyone always wants to try to communicate every single thing about their product, about their brand, about their purpose, about everything on the front panel of their package or on the homepage of their website or whatever else. So a reminder I like to give people is that your brand isn't just a single photo or an image or anything like that. It is more like a movie series. It's not a single frame, but it's something that unravels over time. And part of what I mean there is that over the journey with your customer, you're gonna both learn more. You're gonna learn more about your customer over time. They're gonna learn more about your brand. You're gonna have some sort of shared experiences. Maybe you'll be at events together. Maybe you'll have experiences online. Maybe you'll be chatting on social media. Over the course of your relationship with that customer, you're gonna share some wins and losses. You're gonna, as a company, do some amazing things. You're going to help your customers do some amazing things with their life based on using your products or service, etc. And note that over time, both you and your customer will change and evolve, and that's fine. And sometimes that means you'll grow apart, like those clothing brands that you used to shop when you were a teenager and you no longer do. That's totally fine. That brand can keep on existing for people in its specific demographic. But, sometimes people grow apart, or maybe sometimes you'll grow together. Maybe like a brand like Apple, where you dipped your toe in the water with an iPod. Next thing you know, you've got all Apple equipment everywhere in your house. So whichever path makes sense for you and your customer is totally fine. But like I said, it's not just a single frame. It is an entire movie. And one way to kind of think about how complex or how many touch points you might actually have with your customers to do storytelling is by doing some customer journey mapping. So just a quick example of how some of that something like that might work. Here's a very, very light customer journey map for a product-based company. And in this particular case, we're going to assume this is a product that you're going to find on a retail shelf. So a customer might first see your product walking through a store and see your package on the shelf. They might think, oh, that's an interesting looking package. Let me just pick that up and see what this product is all about. And I'll lift up the package, kind of turn the package around, look at some of the attributes, note this price on the shelf to see if it's something accessible to their price points or their budget. They're going to flip around the back panel, read more about your company or read more about the product. If they like it, they're going to say, okay, I'll give this a shot, put it in their cart, and have some sort of checkout experience. So if this is e-commerce, that's a whole nother kind of thing we can talk about. And then when they get this product home, they're going to unbox it, which means there's lots of storytelling opportunities as they unpack your product. And then of course, as they start using your product, they're going to get a feel for your brand based on the quality of your product and whether or not the product works. And then hopefully after using your product for a little while, they'll get some benefits from said product. And then maybe they're starting to actually like your brand and be like, you know what, these people are legit. Like I bought them at the store, but it actually works and it's affordable. Like, let me go look up more information about this company. And then they might learn more about your brand, like your founding story or anything else like that. And they start to fall in love and they'll follow you on social media. As you can see, even just with this initial like week-long timeline or something like that, there are a lot of different areas to be telling some of your story and to be communicating what your brand is all about. And again, this is just scratching the surface, because after they start following you on social media, there's a whole nother level of stuff you can communicate. Maybe get them to sign up for your email list and buy more products and see you at events and so on and so forth. So just to give you another quick example, retail environment, and this could work for e-commerce as well, but I was breaking this one out for a brick and mortar. So somebody might first come across your brand by seeing a sign on a building and say, oh, that's interesting name. What is that shop? And then they get a little closer, look at your window displays or any window graphics where you can be kind of communicating a little bit more about what you're all about. And then maybe all of a sudden they start hearing some music playing from the store, or maybe you're pumping some chocolate smells onto the streets like Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory does. And then they're like, you know what, this seems cool. This seems like it's perfect for me. I'm going to walk in the store. And they start noticing all these colors in the store, how you painted the walls, the decor that you've chosen, etc. Maybe an employee kind of greets them as they walk into the store. What does that employee say? That's all part of your brand, right? So then as they kind of walk through the store and they start seeing different signs that you've put up and your prices, that kind of tells them a little bit more about your brand. Maybe at some point an employee comes up to assist them, and how that interaction plays out is also part of the brand. And then they'll start wandering through your store and seeing the range of products that you have in your selection and the quality of products you have in your selection. Maybe they do decide to buy something and they go through an entire checkout experience, which again could be broken. After checkout, maybe they get signed up on your email list. You kind of continue that journey with them. But again, this is just a tiny snapshot, and you see how many different opportunities there are to communicate. So your brand is not just a logo. Your brand is not just the front panel of your package. Your brand is everything. It's what they see, what they smell, how they experience it, how employees talk to them, and so on and so forth. All of those are opportunities for storytelling. I had another example in here for service, but I'm just going to skip that for now, so you can look at that when you see the slides later. All right, so one exercise you might want to do as you're thinking about brand storytelling is just start by documenting those steps on the journey, so you have a better idea of all the different interaction touch points where you can start telling some of your purpose or some of the product qualities, et cetera, et cetera. So you probably have some low-hanging fruit already taken care of. You got an email list, you got some social media feed, but where else? Like, are your employees talking to people? Do you have chat bots? Do you have user experience problems that need to be resolved, so on and so forth? So here, over on the side here, are just a few prompts to help you kind of think about that. Like, where does before somebody even finds your brand, how do they hear about you? Are they hearing about you through a friend or family member or an ad or something else like that? And then, what steps come before they buy or join your product? All those things the journeys that I just talked about were kind of pre-buy kind of journeys for the most part. And then what's the experience of using your product or service? How do they spread your story? Obviously, you want your customers to be kind of spreading or sharing the love, right? So like any opportunities you have or any ways you can make it easier for them to do so, the better. And then how are they coming back for more, and when? Like, how often do they buy your product? How often do they engage with your brand? And then how are you two evolving together? Ideally, the whole point of you selling a product to your customer is to solve a problem, solve a need that they have. So hopefully by doing so, you're helping them evolve, and maybe you as a brand continue to evolve as well and find more and more ways to solve that problem and help your customers. So that would be one step, is just think about the journey. But the whole point of this, or not the whole point, but a big part of this kind of conversation here is brand storytelling with purpose, right? So brand storytelling is one thing, but what is this whole purpose thing? I can't see everybody on screen, but maybe just for fun, for those who can see, who all has heard of this Simon Sinek Golden Circle or Start with Why?
Definitely.
I'm seeing a few hands on a couple of the pictures I can see on my screen. So this whole concept, which was like one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, the idea behind this is that people care more about why you do what you do than what it is that you do. And the reason behind that is humans are just very emotional beings. Like, we tend to think that everyone's just analyzing all the options and logically deciding this one has the best attributes and the best qualities or the best ingredients, so I'm going to choose that. But there's always a zillion more things going through their head, whether that's price, whether that's the perception of your brand, whether that's what your brand will say about them as a person when they buy it, whether that's whether or not their friends buy your brand, whether that's the celebrity that buys your brand and they look up to that celebrity. All of those things are much more likely to influence them than the details, the specific attributes of your product or service, because we're emotional creatures. And therefore, Simon Sinek suggests we should be talking more about our purpose, our why, which is the emotion behind our brand, than just the specs. So for example, when those Apple versus Microsoft commercials were out, a lot of computer companies were always just talking about how many gigabytes or how much RAM or how much storage or whatever. And that was how they were all competing. And then Apple came out and didn't mention any of those things, not once. All they said was, hey, we help you do cool stuff and be creative. Like, that's it. Because that was their purpose, is to help people think different, right? So by doing so, they exploded and became the most valuable company in the world. So thinking about your why a little bit more is important. So the good news is your purpose is basically your why. So your purpose is why your company exists beyond making money. Now, let's be real, all of our companies need to make money to keep going. If we didn't have money, we wouldn't be able to continue providing the value we provide to the world. So that is very important, of course. But why do you keep getting up in the morning to run this company when it is difficult, when maybe margins aren't always great, when there's supply chain issues, when things are taking longer than you'd like to get to the size of growth that you want, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of struggles and pains that come along with running a company. So if money at the end of the day is the only reason you're doing it, you're probably not going to last very long, because there are other easier ways to make money than being an entrepreneur often, right? So when you tap into your true why of why you're really doing this, it probably has something to do with the purpose, the overarching goals that you're trying to achieve, or what the vision that you see for the world, the changes that you think could be brought about by your company. And those pieces are technically are your why. And then your mission, what people often say, we're mission driven. Your mission is just how you act upon that why. That is the how, that is the strategy. So the why is, I believe that the world can or should be more healthy, sustainable, and just, etc. But my how for Modern Species is we're going to help brands that are making those lifestyle choices easier and better. We're going to help those brands gain market share, right? So that's the mission versus the purpose. And then, of course, your product is the individual kind of pieces and attributes of your product. So we know that purpose is important because people are emotional creatures and they're going to totally align with your why, but they will only align with your why if it is authentic to your brand and relevant to them as your audience or your customer. So this is, I think I've got some examples here. Yeah, so as an example of that, think about this campaign that Pepsi launched a couple of years ago, where they had this whole scene of kind of playing off of these Black Lives Matter protests. And there's all this unrest in the streets and people protesting and violence and police coming out and all this conflict about to happen. And then Kylie Jenner, or whatever her name is, comes out with the Pepsi can and hands it to the police. And that's supposed to have solved all the world's problems and brokered peace amongst the world. And, like to some degree, it's a great message that Pepsi is trying to stand up for social justice and equality and all that kind of stuff. However, what does that have to do with Pepsi? Like, since when has Pepsi ever stood for this? And what does that have to do with a sugary beverage products, right? And the audacity of them thinking that handing a sugary beverage to a police officer is going to solve all these problems is ridiculous. So they got a ton of backlash, not because their heart wasn't in the right place. They probably do care about these kind of things, but because this was completely inauthentic for their brand and, maybe relevant to their audience. So like, you have to have both. It can't just be one or the other. Maybe it was relevant to their audience, but so inauthentic to their brand that they actually had to remove the commercial, if I remember correctly, because they got so much backlash from this. On the flip side, if you look at a brand like Patagonia, who literally told people, don't buy our products this Black Friday, because even though our products are better than the average in terms of sustainability, supply chain ethics, etc., they are still a physical product that takes resources, and you probably don't need this product. So you know what? Just don't buy it. Don't buy this jacket. Granted, this effort backfired because actually people went out and bought tons of these jackets afterwards. But the point is that they were being authentic to their brand. They don't exist in the world to sell you as many jackets as possible. They try to make one jacket that you can use for many, many years. And when you're done with it, it can be recycled and so on and so forth. So this is very authentic to them. If some other brand told you not to buy this jacket, you'd just be like, what's the gimmick here? You're kind of pulling my leg. But because it's Patagonia, you're like, yeah, you know what? That's totally right. And it reminds you they do make really good stuff and it is better for the world. And I'm going to go support this brand. So this was not only authentic to the brand, but it was relevant to their audience. And that kind of works, right? So making sure your purpose is relevant is super important. And then, this is just one storytelling method. Like, this could have just been seen as, like shutting down the stores or giving their employees time off, or, and setting up some program. But instead, they decided to do a full page ad in the New York Times or whatever this was to kind of tell this story. And this is just one way in which they continue to tell their story. So I have a whole kind of longer talk on how to use this relevancy filter, but I just thought I'd share the high level with you right now so that you can be thinking about your purpose and your impact efforts and making sure that they're relevant for your brand, authentic to your brand, and relevant to your customer. So you can test out this formula. I've been testing it for a little while. It seems to hold up in most cases. But the idea is that, first off, your brand is known probably for some core product or service. Like Apple's not known for books. Apple is known for computers and devices, right? For example. So whatever that core product or service that you have, that maybe is the first layer of filter, because if it's not relevant to that, it might just raise eyebrows. Like if Apple all of a sudden decided that their entire purpose is about children's literacy, you'd kind of raise an eyebrow and be like, what? How does that have anything to do with your product? And then the next layer of filter would be, is this relevant to the problem you solve? So in this particular example, I guess we'll just keep trying to riff off of the Apple example. The problem they're solving is helping people be more creative, right? To express themselves more, etc. If they're trying to do some sort of purpose-driven thing that's more about, I don't know, let's just say accessibility. I don't know if Apple's main thing is accessibility, but let's just say that they're kind of doing this whole campaign about how everyone deserves equal access to government buildings or something like that. You're also going to be like, wait, how does this have anything to do with your brand? So that's probably not a good thing for them to focus on. And then lastly, the customer's why. Like, why do they buy your brand over someone else's brand? And if it doesn't fit all three of these things, then it's probably A, not a good purpose to focus on, because it's only meaningful to you and not your brand and or your customer, or B, it's just going to be kind of seen as greenwashing or something like that, kind of like the Pepsi thing. Like they may actually care about that, but that was probably the wrong move for them. So I think, we all see things happening in the news all the time, and we all want to do something about it as kind of purpose-driven people. But it's not always relevant to our brand to jump in and participate in every single thing that happens across the world. So think about whether or not it's relevant or authentic to your brand to jump in the fray and do something about this right now. And think about whether or not it's really relevant to your customer as well. So with that said, let's just assume you've got a really relevant purpose and some awesome impact you're aiming at, and you kind of mapped out your customer journey and you've got lots of opportunities to tell some stories. Just doing a quick time check here. Okay, so some of the usual communications that are more what based might be, you're going to tell people, here's our offering and here's all the features of our offering, whether that's product or service. You might also be used to telling people about, hey, we've got a sale going on, or we've got this promotion going on right now where if you buy one, you get one free, or whatever it is. We're very used to communicating about company news. You just won an award, or you're going to an event, or you hired a new employee, or you entered a new market, or you launched a new thing, or something like that. I think this is all pretty obvious to us. And then there's educational content, which is basically the new SEO to some degree, is really doing a lot of content marketing, often in a way that will help people get informed. But this could also be like how-to videos, like how to use your product or anything else like that. These are the obvious things, right? But how do we focus more on our purpose? And so one way to think about it is your purpose is likely to make an impact in some way. And the impact basically means the result of you succeeding in your mission to make people's lives and the world meaningfully better. So if we're thinking like, okay, our purpose isn't just this big belief, but it's like things we want to do in the world for real people or the environment or whatever, it starts giving us a little bit more of the why behind what we do. And therefore, our storytelling opportunities might pop up more like this. Maybe it's like, why did you start this business in the first place? You could have started any business, but you chose this one. You probably didn't do it just to make money. Hopefully, you also did it because there's some purpose behind it. So can we start telling some of those like founder stories? You might be thinking about, or you might want to start telling stories about who you're trying to help. Like more often than not, brands are just talking about me. Like, this is what we're all about. This is how awesome our products are. This is how much we're better than everyone else. But what about who you're trying to help? Are you telling stories about them and connecting with them? Just extra resource for you to look up on your own time is the story brand structure. And it's basically the idea that you want to put, or most companies put themselves in the position of the hero, but in reality, it's more resonant if you put your customer in your story as the hero, and you as the company is the guide for them along their journey, right? Because it puts them more in the center, makes them feel really good, helps them live out their dreams, and helps them bring about the change, and you're just there to help them. So who are you trying to help, and how are you solving their problems? These are just interesting ways to start talking about your product that's not what based, but it's like, instead of saying our computer has this many gigabytes, you're saying we help photographers do more or do better work, or we help videographers create amazing movies like Pixar, or whatever else. It's the problems that you're solving. It's more important than the specifics about what it does. And then of course you can offer examples of real results or impact. If you truly are purpose driven and you've translated that purpose into some impact goals, why not share some of those results? Share how you've helped customers, share how you've helped the environment, share how you've changed the community. And then why this all matters in a bigger context, I think that's pulling it back to your vision for the future sometimes. So reminding people that the reason you sell XYZ and make it in this way is because if more and more companies do it that way, or more consumers buy those types of products, the world will look like this. Hopefully it'll be healthier, it'll be more sustainable, it'll be more just, it'll be whatever. But remind people why your one little product matters in a bigger context. And then I think something that people don't do often enough with their messaging is invite other people in, invite your stakeholders in, invite brand partners or quote unquote competitors in on your mission, invite your customers in, and let them know how they can help, whether that's just, hey, buy this product during this month and we're gonna donate X% of the proceeds to our cause, or maybe it's, hey, sign up for this petition, or maybe it's, hey, come to this event with us and we're going to be volunteering and helping this community out or something. But the more you invite people in, the more emotionally connected they will feel to your brand, because they'll feel part of it, not just a consumer of it. And then you can also be talking about stories about like why your team, your employees work for you, why they care so much about this cause. You can be talking about how you operate in alignment with your purpose. So your purpose isn't just some check that you write at the end of the day. Hopefully it's woven throughout your brand and it influences your customer service policies, your HR policies, your product development roadmap, and all those other kind of things. So explaining how it is that your company operates and how that relates to your mission. So as you can see, there's just tons of different stories that you can be telling. So what you want to do now is take that customer journey map. We'll just call that the dotted line here that you're going to make. And you're going to know all the touch points that you have with your journey or with your customer at different phases of the relationship you have with them. And then just look for opportunities to share your brand promise, to talk about some purpose stories, to share impact stories, to invite people to participate. You're just going to, because you can only communicate so much in each interaction, you're just going to look for the right times to tell each piece of the story, knowing that if you get them in at the right spot, they'll continue on this journey with you and they'll hear the rest of the messages. You don't have to tell them everything all at once in this one social media post. You just have to plant a seed, and then you and them will water it together and eventually it will grow into something more. So a lot of kind of storytelling strategy is just about figuring out in this one moment, let's say the front of your package or the homepage of your website, what is the most important thing we need to tell them right now to get them to take the next step? So back to that retail customer journey example, the sign on the door, that's going to communicate something, the name of your business or whatever, right? That's the first step. Is that intriguing enough? Is it explanatory enough? But then it's the window graphics. Once they look at your window graphics, they're going to get a little bit better idea of what you do. You don't have to tell them the whole story. You don't have to list every single product. You don't have to tell them your prices. You don't have to tell them everything. They just have to see something in those window graphics that says, you know what, this seems relevant to me. Let me walk into this store. And then you tell them another story. So you're just going to find the right moments to tell them something to get them to take the next step and come on this journey with you. And in those moments, sometimes you're going to be talking about what, like, hey, we've got a sale going on right now. But a lot of times you can also be talking about your why. Hey, this company exists for these reasons and we do this because of this, or we're trying to help these people. If that sounds like you, come in, you're our audience. So taking that journey map that you've created, you can then just go start to ask yourself questions like, you know, first off, is our purpose authentic to our brand? If not, we need to pause and rethink so we don't Pepsi ourselves here. And then is our purpose relevant to our customer? You know, same thing. Like it might be super relevant to you, but you like maybe you really care about you know, more or removing toxins from lawn care or something like that. Let's just say that's your product. But your customer works for an airline company. Like how is that going to be relevant to them? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Anyway, so then from there, you can be thinking about different ways throughout your brand that you can be kind of communicating your purpose. First of all, are the visuals of your brand hinting at your purpose at all? You can create visually expressive brands that start to hint at some of the things your company is all about. Where are you communicating your purpose? Is it front panel of your package? Is it on your, is it buried in some sustainability page in the footer of your website? Or is it mentioned the first thing people see when they land on your homepage? Where can we share stories of impact? This could be testimonials. This could be in social media. This could be videos. This could be entire campaigns. There could be all sorts of stuff. Where can we strengthen our impact? So once you really weave your purpose into your brand, you might start finding things that don't align with your brand that your company does, like maybe some HR policies or customer service policies, or where you're getting your ingredients or supplies or whatever from. And you can kind of strengthen your impact by aligning everything more clearly. And then where can you invite participation? Don't just do all the work yourself and pat yourself on the back and tell your story. Invite your customers in to be part of your impact journey, to be part of your purpose. Therefore, they will get some of those emotional rewards from being part of it. They'll feel good about what they're doing, and they'll be more bonded to you. Okay, so timing wise, I think
You're
got a
doing
couple
great.
minutes.
Yep.
Couple minutes for questions. I know this is packing a lot of stuff. Like I said, there's probably more like 6 hours of workshop-y kind of stuff in here, but hopefully that kind of line of logic makes sense, that there's lots of opportunities to tell your story. Your purpose is more of your why. Make sure it's authentic to your brand and relevant to your customer, and then find opportunities to tell little bits of your story throughout your customer journey, not all at once. Quick,
So we're gonna have Misty and Rikki talk about each of their brand stories in a minute, but I see one question that is in the type space. So Raphael, give you a second here. I'm going to ask you to unmute. If you could just state your question, and then if anyone else will take one other question for sure now, and then we'll also take questions for everybody after we have a chance to hear from Rikki and Misty. So Raphael, do you want to bring your question up?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm Raphael 21, and my question was about fashion brands, for example. How do you communicate the story of the products? Is it the same journey as the brand story?
Yeah, fashion brand. So it's like clothing, you mean?
Hello?
Yes. We heard
Hello?
you. Yeah, we can hear you. So go ahead. Yeah, it's clothing and other types of fashion items, I would assume.
Yeah, sure. So every companies that make physical products have supply chains, right? So first off, with a fashion brand, it might be where you're getting your raw materials. Are you getting organic cotton, for example, from a fair trade source that promotes better living for those communities and fewer toxins, etc.? Are you making your clothing out of recycled plastic bottles that are pulled out of the ocean? You know, there's lots of different things that could be going into your materials. And then it could be how you're making products. For example, a friend of mine runs a business that trains refugee women to create products out of upcycled materials, like returned bed sheets from Amazon that they clean up and then turn into scrubs for nurses, for example. It could be in your business, like that kind of manufacturing model, that you are making things by hand, creating jobs for people who need jobs, and teaching skills and making, you know, a better product in the end, something more customized. And then it could also be maybe in your end of life or cycle. So for example, maybe your clothes are designed to be more durable, more recyclable, etc., like Patagonia. There could also be the specific type of customer or person you're trying to help. Like there are clothing stores out there who cater to underserved communities that don't normally have options in major retail, right? So it could be, I just noticed the cat back there.
That's
it
great.
could be, it could be, there. Bottom line, there's so many different paths for purpose in something like a clothing brand. And then there's going to be lots of different opportunities in your customer journey. You might have a store or an online store. Like, how are you communicating with them on that store? How are you giving them opportunities to try on clothing or figure out what fits them best? Are you giving them opportunities to return that clothing? Are you connecting them with the people who actually make the clothing? You know, once you kind of understand your purpose, like which thing you're standing for, then you can kind of break down your whole customer journey on every touch point they have with you, and find ways to kind of communicate that impact. So it could just be like literally on the tags of your clothing, in the box or in the bag you ship it with. You can ship materials along with your clothing. Maybe you follow up with them afterwards and tell them about the impact they had by buying your clothing. You know, there's so many different opportunities.
one thing I'll say, while we want to keep this as close to an hour as possible, we certainly, for those who want to hang out a little longer, we certainly can have some more Q&A if need be. Because Gage, to be honest, that's great substance. And as you said, it's kind of a teaser for a lot of the things that you know about or could engage people on. Is anyone else, if you have another question you want to put in the chat, that'll be great. In the meantime, I'm going to ask one last question before we'll go on to Misty, all right? So we have a lot of folks here in e-commerce, a lot of D2C brands, if you will, that have, are trying to bake purpose in. And so instead of saying, what should they do right? Maybe, in terms of websites, what are a few frequent things that brands tend to do wrong? What are some mistakes to avoid in terms of sharing your brand story online?
Yeah, well, there's a category of things that people do wrong just from like a website design standpoint, like bad user experience. Like people land on your site and they have no idea what you sell or to whom or whether or not they can afford it or how much it costs to ship or how long it takes to ship or your back order. There's just so many things you could solve there. But from a storytelling standpoint, I think one of the things I see is that people often bury their kind of impact into like one sustainability page or something like that, and it feels unintegrated and almost to the level of like, yeah, we're supposed to do something sustainable, so we just have this one page and that's where we talk about like the sustainability we do. But then you don't mention it on the product page, you don't mention it on your homepage, you don't have testimonials of how you've actually helped people solve their problems listed throughout your website. There's just so many other opportunities for you to storytell, but then don't forget that it doesn't end at your website. That's hopefully just the beginning of your journey. When you go through the checkout process and get them to sign up for your email list, once they buy your product, there are more opportunities to continue telling your story. So one thing to think about with a lot of storytelling or behaviors that you want people to take is that motivation comes and goes. So it's hard to plan your the behaviors you want people to take based on a specific motivation level. So always just make things easy. So in some cases, like maybe you don't want to litter them with too much information about all the impact of your product before they buy the product, because they might be overwhelmed and be like, oh my God, this is like too much to consume. But you give them a little bit of information, get them to buy the product, make it easy for them to like try a sample or whatever else it is, buy the product. And then after they buy the product, you can send them more messages being like, hey, you got this awesome product. Here's some of the cool benefits that you're going to get from buying this product, or here's what your purchase just did for these people over in this country that we serve. Or, there's lots of storytelling opportunities. Don't just feel like you have to cram it all into one place.
Gage, there's a question for you in the chat on the weave diagram. Maybe you can answer that. We're going to put Misty up on the stage to share a bit about her brand story, and then we'll have Rikki after that, and then we'll take any more questions and discussion at the end. So Misty, come on up.
Great, thanks, Stephen. My name is Misty Castañeda, and I'm the founder of For Purpose Kids. We are a social good brand that helps kids and families build empathy, connection, and belonging through play and storytelling. We've just launched a new line of global Kittison dolls. They're fair trade, handmade dolls that have cultural stories that feature a group of diverse characters from around the world. And our reason for doing this is to increase empathy, connection, and belonging in the next generation of global citizens. So Gage, thank you so much for that presentation. It's a little hard to follow that just because I feel like everyone's going to be thinking, what touch points did she hit on this? Or, take a glance at, the website and think about all these things. But, for me, I've been on this journey for 5 years, and I will say that my why is the only thing that keeps me going. So, for me as a socially focused brand, the purpose is what, as you referenced, gets me out of bed in the morning and really has me committed to keep trying to figure out this puzzle. It's, I'll be honest too, it's been a lot harder than I expected, but I say that because it's something now that I am dedicated to figuring out. For me, the journey has been more about really getting to what my, product is that I really wanted to put out in the world and supporting that and building the story around it. For me, I kind of, just thought I would share my, kind of 3 highlights of what's really important for me. And you touched on one, of course, which is speaking from the heart. That's not a challenge for me, but as someone who always is speaking from the heart, I struggle to be clear and concise with that. So that brings me to point 2, which is this idea that, Brene Brown a few years ago came up with this, clear is kind idea. And I didn't really understand it. And now I do, especially when it comes to brand marketing. If you've got 5 to 7 seconds to capture the attention of a consumer, as we've been told we do, how do we take that 40-minute presentation you just made, which could be a 6-hour workshop, into 7 seconds, especially when it's more than just a product and you've got below that, you've got your purpose. And then not only that, a lot of us are give back brands and, have sustainability focuses and all of that. And so I think what I took from that too, in that clarity, which is so key, is that it doesn't have to all be shared at once. That's where, for me, over the first few years doing this myself, I realized I needed a team, and I needed a team to really help me craft that messaging. And so I've brought in some people that are really great at the storytelling piece. But as people get more savvy about telling stories on social media and all of these different channels, I think it becomes even more difficult to then separate yourself from everyone else. And so, point 3 for me is, again, this idea of it's not easy. I think I thought that just because the world needed something and increased empathy, which I think we can all, agree is something that we desperately need. And for me, with a passion in early childhood education, it's how do we start at the youngest of ages to introduce these ideas to kids? Just because the world needs that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. And so I think for us, I can show you a preview of one of our handmade dolls, and we have 5 diverse characters that we highlight with the Global Citizens, is, for me, how do we do this, and how do we do this through play? And then how do we engage parents, right? People are so overwhelmed right now. I mean, I really appreciated Bailey talking about, the events in the recent weeks with what happened in Texas and what's happened in Buffalo, because, for me as a parent, I have a 6-year-old child, and I started this before he was born. It's really important too for me to weave what's really happening in the world with the brand, but it's really difficult to do that in a way that doesn't seem performative, that doesn't seem like you're just ticking boxes. As Gage said, when I first saw that Pepsi ad, which I hadn't seen before, I definitely started making faces because I thought they missed the mark in so many ways. But again, how do we not how do we communicate our brand and our story in a way that's authentic and real? And for me, stepping into a space of diverse characters as a white woman is really, a story that we need to tell. And it's very important we tell that and tell our why behind that. This is something we've been doing for a long time. It's not something we did just because it's become, quote unquote, popular or the thing to do, right? This is a reflection of my life's experiences and the mom of a 6-year-old. So I know we're getting kind of short on time, but I think for me, understanding that we can take our time to do this and not have to share it all at once is really my biggest takeaway. And that's really our challenge as a brand right now with our newly launched dolls that we just launched last fall, is how do we communicate all that goes into this within a fairly short period of time. So if anyone wants to connect after and wants to, collaborate and talk about ways we can work together, I'm all about that. So I would love to do that. My information.
That's great. Yes, thank you so much. You definitely do reshare in the chat your contact info there too. So let's go on to Rikki and have you tell a similar story, or your own story, but in a similar way, or whatever. Just need to unmute. There you go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rikki Quintana. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief bottle washer at HoonArts Fair Trade. I'm one of those solopreneurs. And as I said in the chat, I work with artisans in Central Asia. And one of the questions that I always get when I am sharing my story and talking live with people is, well, first of all, where is Central Asia? And second, how in the world did I get connected with artisans in Central Asia? Well, I spent 31 years practicing law. I'm a recovering attorney. And when I retired from practicing law, I had no aspirations at all to be an entrepreneur. I was a very risk-averse person. That's why I went into law. But I wanted to reconnect with where my passion, what always moved me. So I looked for opportunities to volunteer in the international connections sphere in Albuquerque. And I volunteered with a local organization that hosts short-term professional exchange delegations. And we hosted delegations from all over the world for anywhere from 2 days to a week. And I loved the experience. I got to connect with amazing professionals from all different parts of the world and all different themes and perspectives and industries. And we hosted a couple of delegations from Central Asia. And like everybody else, I had to go look it up on a map. And for those of you who may not know, Tajikistan is north of Afghanistan, west of China, and several countries south of Russia. I'll just leave it at that. But we at our second delegation from Tajikistan, we were at our farewell party, and everybody makes little speeches. That's part of the tradition of these delegations. Everybody makes a little farewell speech, and I stand up and I find myself saying, I know there's nobody else working in the US to build a sustainable market for Tajik handicrafts. And I know they're beautiful. I'll do it. I'll build that market. How tough can it be? And thank God I didn't know what I didn't know. And as Misty said, that ultimate why of building those connections and understanding is what gets me up every day. I've been at it for 7 years, Misty. And it is a continual challenge. And even describing our purpose becomes really challenging because I work with artisans in Central Asia, and my customers are in the West. So marketing tells me I need to meet the wishes and desires of my buyers, but my purpose is over here with the artisans. What drives me is over here. So it has been a real challenge, but storytelling has, or as I like to say, show and tell. I think of it, that's the way I think of it. Show and tell is visual, it's telling, and it's responding to whoever you're communicating with at the time, which means one of the key aspects of storytelling that has become really important for me is thinking about, who am I talking to? Am I talking to an existing customer? Am I talking to a prospective customer? Am I talking to a potential partner along the way? And the other thing that has become really clear over time is that a good story is not about something, it is truly show and tell. So if a story can be tied to a particular person, a particular event, as if you're watching a story unfold on the screen, it has way more impact than saying, oh, well, I work with 100 artisans in Central Asia. If I can tell you a story about Munira Akilova, the designer I work with, who lives in northern Tajikistan, and she works with artisans from 7 villages and tell individual stories, individual occurrences, it becomes way more impactful. And I don't know how my time is going. One of the other things that has become really a part of my whole storytelling ethos, because I work with artisans in a remote area, that it has become very important to tell those stories in an ethical way, in a way that honors the culture and dignity of the artisans involved, the people involved, rather than simply using it as an adjunct to push the product into the Western market. And I can give you a really concrete example that came up recently. I interviewed Munira, my Tajik designer, and asked her what was the biggest impact that her working with our brand had on her. Not what she thought I wanted to hear, not what she thought the American audience might want to hear, but what she wanted, what she actually thought. And her comment was that she really appreciated the support for cultural preservation and cultural integrity. But she went on to say that she always, whenever she tells the stories of the village ladies who actually do the embroidery, she has to be really careful, because in these villages, the sharing the photos, the names of these artisans can be very culturally sensitive. And for example, she talked about a couple of village ladies whose husbands didn't want their wives' pictures on Facebook, and they were shared. I didn't share them. This was work that was done in Tajikistan, and the husbands started gossip. There was gossip in the village, and it required some education of the husbands involved to understand what was going on and why their pictures were being used. And even in this little interview, Munira asked that I remove the names of the particular ladies that she was talking about because of this cultural sensitivity. So whose story is it, and being sensitive to the cultural context?
Well, Rikki, thank you very much for sharing your story. Misty, thank you very much. We started a few minutes late, so let's take a few questions if anyone wants to have a comment. Obviously, those who need to leave, feel free to leave. Gage, if you have your next appointment, I'm not going to hold you to it, but I'd love to give it a chance for anybody else who would like to either have a comment or ask a question for the next, few 3, 4, or 5 minutes here. So who would like to ask a question or say a comment? Yes, Mike, come on.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to say that this is like really special for me. Like, I think what you guys are doing is awesome, and it's great to be in a community that is not only doing things to try to help make the world a better place, and obviously it's very complicated. We're working with trying to move the needle with 8 billion plus different personalities and opinions about things. And obviously when the world is very complex as it is, and very traumatic and trying in a lot of different ways, it makes it even harder for people to make maybe conscientious decisions because they're just trying to survive and make it through the day, even in the most, well-to-do communities. So I think, just having these kinds of conversations coming together and all those types of things is very important for me. And I think it's important for everybody here to get sort of a recharge. I'm just happy to be a part of what y'all are doing at GoodCarts. And I'm appreciative of, highlighting Bernie Wilds and what we're trying to do too. And just grateful. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else want to add a comment before we finish up here? We'll go. I know there are a few folks I see on the group that are new names to me, and I would love to, show you what GoodCarts is about. I just put in the chat a link to, it's goodcarts.co/members, and not all of our members are profiled there. If you're a member of GoodCarts, we'd like to have you fill out your profile. Lynn Murica can send you the link to where you fill out your survey. But we do include, for example, links to if you've been interviewed in a podcast, if you have a video that you've shared. We also ask you to share a lesson with other founders. And the focus of our member directory is actually to other brands, but certainly could be useful for shoppers as well potentially. But it's really focuses trying to tell a story to each other about what we're up to. So I'm going to do one last call for questions or comments. Anyone else? Rikki, come on in.
Steve, I wanted to put in a quick plug before I leave, not for HoonArts, but for an organization that I've recently become involved with. And I think there are some members on this call who are also members, and that's Catalyst 2030. This is a global organization dedicated to accelerating the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals and system change. So they're working from both grassroots to systemic change using a very collaborative model. And if you're looking for more opportunities to engage with other like-minded people and organizations who are committed to building a better world, check out Catalyst 2030. It's really an amazing organization, and they have a huge array of collaborative initiatives that have been launched, one of which is an e-commerce market that is getting off the ground as well. So I encourage you to all check that out and consider becoming a member. It's a wonderful organization. As Mike said, the opportunity to connect with other people, like-minded people, helps all of us keep going when the going gets tough.
And I can just add, I added a link to the chat to catalyst2030.net. I'm in their onboarding process as well and enjoyed their week of activities. And then Andrea, I blanked on her last name, but Amanda Kiesel.
Yes.
She's with goodmarket.global, and she was actually featured in last month's economic empowerment e-commerce event. And she, the goodmarket.global is also woven into the Catalyst market work, and there's lots of substance there. And particularly in terms of empowering, I think, artisans around the world, basically getting access to global markets is where I see a lot of the benefits of what they're working on. Gage, I want to give you one last chance to, if you have any reactions to what you've heard from the other brands or wanted to say goodbye, come on back on the stage for a moment.
Well, actually, I was going to just give a plug for GoodCarts, because if you don't already have GoodCarts installed, just think of it as yet another brand storytelling opportunity, because by sharing which other kind of good brands out there you affiliate your brand with, that is just another way to tell your story and to give people a hint at what you care about, what you believe, and what your purpose is. So being part of a GoodCart circle like Black Owned or anything else like that hints at what your company is all about and kind of spreads the love. So definitely do that. But yeah, appreciate all the questions and extra stories here. We could continue this conversation for hours, I imagine.
Absolutely.
But I know you want to get moving on, Steven.
That's
so
fine,
again.
Gage. So thank you, Gage. And it's evolvecpg. What's the domain name for the online community you host?
EvolveCPG.com is the website. The community is community.evolvecpg.com.
Excellent. So he has a great podcast that you'll get a slice of Gage every month or every week. I'm not sure how often you come out.
Every week.
Every week. There you go. And he's interviewing great folks from around the purpose-driven commerce world, if you will, particularly with this CPG focus.
Find an episode with Steven on there too. I can track down the episode and share a link. And then also Plavi on here was also on the show recently, or on the podcast.
Great. So we're going to stop the recording now. And then for those who want to go into a little demo of GoodCarts, I want to say goodbye to all of our members. You already obviously know what it's about. And we are plotting some meetups this summer. One of them is going to be an intern meetup. So if you have any interns this summer, we want to connect all the interns across impact retailers, and whether they be in e-commerce, like a website for selling, or maybe they work for Shopify, you name it. We're just going to try to bring together a lot of the folks that hang out. Maya Johnson, our intern coordinator and intern last year, just posted in the chat. Yes, so it's kind of a way for us to do some more networking, and we may do some other kinds of spontaneous meetups, more the many things. But next month we are plotting an event on digital advertising, and we're looking for we have some recommendations on speakers, but we're trying to find someone who knows a lot about purpose-driven brands and digital ads, has experience working with those kinds of brands, particularly in the transition from Facebook ads just doing all what you needed to now trying to figure out how you could use Google ads and other ad platforms as part of your advertising mix as you try to scale. All right, so if anyone wants to hang out, just hang out for GoodCarts. Otherwise, thank you, everyone.